Thank you for tuning in to this episode of CynSpeaks. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about those voices in your head that don't serve you and those thoughts that you have that don't serve you. And we're going to talk about how to deal with those and recognize those as well. So sometimes the thoughts that don't serve you are there because you've been programmed to believe them since childhood. That's a fact. It is what it is. Nothing you can do about that now. What you can do is move into a space where you are able to release those if they don't serve you, and release those if they don't align with your journey. You also want to think about why they were given life in the first place. Sometimes our thoughts are given life because we choose to give it life. As a child, if it's programming from you as a child, that's going to look different because, of course, you respect your parents and you want the things that your parents tell you to be true, and you want them to only tell you things that are good for you, and you think that that is the case, but that is not always the case. Your parents were probably recovering from their own negative thoughts that they were programmed to believe, so cut them some slack. But just because they said something doesn't make it true. These types of voices will make you feel, and I'm not saying literal voices, I'm saying like thoughts, really. So the thoughts will make you feel maybe unworthy, like you are a victim or that you don't deserve to be loved. They may cause you to feel like you are just not worthy. They may cause you to self-sabotage. That is a huge one. And almost like blame you for the things that happen to you, blame you for the stuff that hurts, and that's not cool. And you can decide what you allow to stay. And there's the possibility that you allow it to stay, there's the possibility that you allow it to go. When you're making that decision, decide what reality you want to bring to life. There's no perfect person. Even though you have flaws, that doesn't make you unworthy. So think about that. And when you're dealing with this, remember that people who manipulate others are often a victim of their own thoughts, if that makes sense. So these are usually people that aren't really aware that what they're doing is wrong. They think that this is the way it's supposed to be. And if you're dealing with other people that are a victim of their thoughts, you want to make sure that you take a step back, detach yourself, try to evaluate the situation as best you can, and decide if this person or this thought or this belief system is in alignment with the life you want. Decide if it works for you. Decide if it makes sense. Decide if it feels good. If there's somebody in your life and they're just negative, they're just unkind, they're negative, they're dark, they might be trying to pull you into that too. You want to be mindful of your interactions with that person. You want to decide if that's somebody that you want to really spend time with. You want to decide if that's somebody that you really want to be like. And if that's not the case, you want to be mindful of your interactions with them. If you're looking to get into a relationship with somebody, think about that when you're dating. Is this person mostly positive? Is this person whole on their own? Is this person kind? Think about it. Somebody that's negative or thinking negative things is not going to have the ability to be kind. They're going to be unkind to you and unkind to others. That will become clear usually after that mask off phase, right? When they show their true colors. But sometimes you can catch on to it sooner by just listening to the things that they say. And if what they're saying is constantly negative, or if they're pointing out the negative in others, or if they're constantly saying things that are harmful to others, those are things to be mindful of, because that's what they believe, right? They believe it. Their thoughts came from somewhere. So if you're around somebody and you just don't notice when they're kind, like you're looking for it and you don't see them being kind to others, or if they're only kind because they got something in return, or if they are constantly saying harmful things to other people. Think about when you're at dinner, if somebody's kind to the waiter or considerate to the waiter, that says something about them. If they're unkind or cruel to the waiter, that tells you something about them as well. I've actually heard this, but from the perspective of men, like men pay attention to if the women are kind to the waiter. And I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I've heard that a lot from my guy friends. And they will notice if you're compassionate, if you're kind, if you're understanding, or if you're just plain rude. And I don't know if I've ever met a guy that enjoys a woman that is rude to others. I don't think I've met that, but I think for the most part, men will prefer somebody who's kind and compassionate, because think about it, when men are dating, they're looking for somebody to settle down with. They're looking somebody to enhance their life experience. Depending on the age and the scenario, they could be looking for a mother of their children. So they're going to be looking for somebody that's kind and compassionate, probably kind of like their mother in a not a weird sense, and just those qualities of being kind and compassionate and caring. So if you're rude to the waitress or the waiter, that says a lot about your character. The same goes the other way. Like, a woman will pay attention to that and decide, hey, like, this is a kind and compassionate guy. He can still be a manly man. He can still be masculine and be kind. There's a balance there, and that's totally possible. So those types of people are less likely to be dealing with thoughts that are just negative. So you want to be mindful of that. Also, people that are like change up, like people that are nice in the beginning and then are just cruel out of the blue, pay attention to that. That is a huge red flag. If you are very, very surprised by someone's behavior, like, I would have never thought that they could be like that, you may have been a victim of the mask on scenario. You may have been dealing with somebody that finally showed you their true colors. And when they show you, believe them. If it happens once, that's one thing. If it happens more than once, that's just who they are, and accept them, and then decide if that's someone you want to deal with going forward. But really don't ignore those initial red flags, because I can promise you, and I can say this from experience, they will happen again and again and again and again. And those are the toxic behaviors that will continue to show themselves in the relationship. And you could have gotten a sign from the dating process, and maybe you didn't have to get into the relationship. So if you're just now dating somebody, think about that. Also, some people get stuck in their life, like in the things that are happening to them or the things that are happening in their life, and they can't really get into a space where they're seeing the light or seeing the positivity. You want to think about that as well, because if they're having trouble on their own getting through things, you can't fix them. You can't fix somebody else. And you may find yourself in a situation where you're constantly their person to make them happy. You may be expected by this person to make them happy, and that may be something that is not healthy. Like, I don't think that that's healthy at all, for somebody else to look at me and say, oh, well, you're happy, so let me take some of your happiness and then I'll be happy. That's not healthy. I want you to be happy on your own so that we can be happy together and we can have fun together. If you are looking to somebody else, for somebody else, or to somebody else to fill your void, you are not self-sufficient. You are not self-sustaining, and you're probably not going to be a great contributor to a relationship, not a healthy one. You can be in a codependent relationship, but those aren't necessarily the most healthy. So you want to think about that. And a person shouldn't bring you down, but a person also shouldn't be the only reason that you feel uplifted either. There's a balance. Find that healthy balance within yourself. Look within yourself for happiness. And if there's that person in your world and their thoughts are pretty negative and their thoughts are kind of dragging you down a little bit, like pay attention to that. Don't ignore that. It's probably going to show up again. And if it shows up twice and you still ignore it, think about your worth. Are you really, really doing things and picking people that are in alignment with what you really believe you're worth? That's a whole combo by itself, but we'll talk about that in a future episode, your self-worth. But that's pretty much that. Think about your thoughts and pay attention to your thoughts, and only decide to entertain thoughts that work for you. Don't let these thoughts that are negative stay. Like, release them if they don't align with what you want, and pay attention to other people and be mindful that the thoughts that they're having shape their actions at the end of the day. All right. So, as always, add me on Instagram at Cynamon Voe. And make sure you tag your friends and your people that may be dealing with toxic people or maybe have dealt with toxic people that can understand. Tag them on Instagram so they can chime in as well. Share the episodes, all the things. Let's grow together. Until next time.